You're listening to The Age of Agility, a quick-based podcast. This is the show for people facing unique challenges with an agility mindset. You're about to hear an interview with the leaders improving processes and using flexible technology to reshape our world for the better. Let's dive in.
Hello and welcome to the Age of Agility podcast. This week we're here with Francisco Gonzaba from the Gonzaba Medical Group. Hey Francisco, how's it going?
How you doing? Thanks for having me, Nick. Looking
Happy
forward
to
to
have
the
you
discussion.
here.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Same here. So tell us a little bit about yourself, about what you do.
Of course. So I'm a part of a medical group, and by that specifically, it's a primary care medical group, and it's a very unique model. It was actually started by Dr. William Gonzaba, who's my father. He started over 60 years ago in the community, and a one-room clinic. Not even a weight room. Patients had to wait in their car actually for the weight room. And now we have 10 locations. We have over 800 employees. Our patient base is expanding day by day. So it's really turned into a special operation. I'm lucky to be a part of it. For me specifically, with healthcare, a lot of people think that, I can't get into healthcare because I'm not a clinician. I'm not going to be a physician or a nurse, and I can't bring value. Now it's widely recognized that there's the business of healthcare. And in the business of healthcare, you need obviously business acumen. You need to be able to, there needs to be an administrative component to any successful healthcare organization. And I provide that for Gonzaba Medical Group. I'm my father's a physician, entrepreneur, and he's managing the business the best he can. He's got his hands full. I also have some physician brothers, and they're seeing patients, bringing a great value there. I'm more on the business side of things, and it's a perfect match for what I can bring to the table and also for the group. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
That's really cool. Family business, but with folks kind of in different specializations there. It's
right.
Really cool.
Yeah, it's unique, and there's a lot of family businesses out there, and it's definitely has its ups and downs. I'm sure someone could write a book about how to do it better. But it's been very successful thus far, and communication is key, and showing respect, obviously, and that's ultimately, with those in place, we can overcome anything, any kind of differences of opinion, whatnot.
Sure. So tell us, you kind of told us about some pretty impressive growth there from a one-room clinic to 10 locations.
Yeah.
I'm sure that didn't happen overnight, but tell us about what's different, what has led to or what has contributed to that success.
Yeah, so we can segue into an overarching view of really what it's like to have a small business and have it transition into a larger one. And like I mentioned, it started with a one-room clinic to where it is today. And along the way, there was still a lot of small business mindset, as in you would have certain individuals wear too many hats, perhaps, right? Multiple hats. There wasn't a lot of structure in place. Obviously, on the clinical side of things, there was a lot of structure in place. There had to be to deliver outstanding patient care. But on the business side, you basically had, when I joined the group, you had an outsourced help desk from an IT, from an IT group, an outsourced one at that, trying to get approvals on significant, quotes for IT hardware. And quite frankly, there was an opportunity there to bring in structure. The CEO, the founder, wasn't that technically savvy when it comes to IT. So you can imagine that, on the business side of the group, there was a lot of opportunity from having a call center, building an IT team, building a special focus around the patient experience. Bringing these groups together. It's taken a long time, but what we're doing is we're finally catching up a little bit to the clinical side of things, and it's been some growing pains without question. One of the benefits to the group is that it's an independent group. We're not tied to, private equity or larger structure, a larger entity, if you will. It's just us, privately owned, privately managed, and the benefit of that is we get to deliver patient care for the patient. There's not a shareholder group that we're not shackled to, that we have to appease. So it's allowed us to be really effective at what we do, and we've been successful enough at it to continue to be independent, and we're actually thriving with this model. And so there's some holdover from the smaller business mindset. There's one of the benefits is staying independent, developing those structures in-house, and that way we can remain agile and flexible enough to flex with the industry and trends. There's not a big corporate structure we have to go through. It's essentially one of my directors might come to me and I take it to the finance team and the CEO and plead my case, and we get approvals, and we're moving like that. And that's a big benefit working for an independent group. You get to make a big difference in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that if you were, associated with a hospital group or something like that, it might get a lot more complex.
Oh yeah, 100%. I talk to, I have a lot of, acquaintances in the industry, and yeah, they have to stay in their area, and they have to make a case to their supervisor who has another supervisor, and then they have to take it to the board, and a lot of red tape. And with us, I'm lucky to be in a fast moving environment, and we get to shape our future as we go. So it's been a fun ride so far.
One of the things when you talk to folks, especially kind of more in a tech background, is like they always like to say, "Oh, we fail fast," meaning that they get to, building a structure to move quickly in a business operation sense lets them test and figure out what's working and what's not working. Yeah. Do you have any examples of that in your role?
Sure. So just this is going to be a break in the
sure
for the filming, the splicing. Can you ask that again?
Sorry. yeah, I'll restate it. So, okay. Something you just mentioned there kind of reminded me of when we talk to folks, especially in the tech space. They say they like to fail fast.
Sure.
Meaning that they build a framework so that they can, get the approvals they need quickly. But then, doing that, they are doing an iterative process where they're trying, failing, trying something new again.
Of course.
100%. I'm sure you've.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, one of the benefits of the fail fast model, it's really you fail fast and you get to adjust on the fly, and it's a true iterative process. And, I'm a big fan of, doing pilots. The great thing is we if we have an idea and we think it can make a difference, we can implement something on a small scale. We can trial it with one location and monitor it. And if it goes well, we can tweak it if needed, and then expand it to the rest of the operation. I think back to this one time recently. I was on a phone call with a contact center solutions vendor. I would say they provided software that could help improve call center operations, and it utilized AI to listen to the calls. So if we have a 90-person contact center, and we take a lot of calls, and we also have to do a lot of training, and there's a lot of turnover. The contact center, it's a high stress environment, call after call after call. Some of the patients are unhappy, they get frustrated. And this software was the intent was to sit on the client side and really listen to the call. listen for certain keywords that might um, indicate that there's a negative conversation happening, talking about tone of voice and certain keywords that are often used during a negative uh, during a negative conversation, including curse words, right? So, and with that, it listens to the call, and then it flags it, and it can be flagged for a supervisor on the contact center to listen to the call, and really implement themselves as needed. But more than anything, what it does is it provides on-screen scripting on how to diffuse the situation, right? So, like playbooks, automatic playbooks are triggered right then and there based on how the conversation is going. I mean, it sounds wonderful. So we tried it. I got my contact center director involved, and we vetted it further. And now we completely rolled it out, and it's been a tremendous success. And what that's doing is it's allowing our contact center reps to shorten the training. Normally from 4 weeks, it's now 2 weeks, because they have these playbooks that are on that essentially pop up in real time based on the conversation, and they kind of help guide how we expect the conversation should go. For example, like standards, right? Standards for customer service and certain processes, and it's really made a tremendous impact, and the morale actually has improved as a result. So that's something that I'm a big fan of. If something sounds good, and it's technical in nature, obviously. Technology and innovation is really starting to become a mainstay in healthcare, where it's you have the influence of big business, technology, innovation, disruptors coming into the industry. So we have a lot of opportunity, a lot of vendors, a lot of new solutions coming in, and I'm interested in listening to some that make sense to us, and where it makes sense, we implement. It's been a tremendous value to the group.
Yeah, I can imagine. This I love this story of the AI. It really it kind of shows how your organization's really committed to the patient experience, and
Absolutely.
as well as your employees. But
Yeah,
something I think we skipped over, but you mentioned to me before, is talking about kind of Gonzaba's view on healthcare compared to other organizations. Could you expand
absolutely.
on that?
Yeah, without question. So, like you mentioned, some of the services that we have, obviously, well, it's healthcare, but it's designed, really. Our model is designed to treat seniors. Of course, we see all patients, right? But it's designated as a senior care, and the services that we offer. Hold on, I'm gonna have to scrub that. Sorry, I hear some noise.
Sure.
Okay. Um, so let me start again. Okay. So we've made the investment to um, tweak our existing operations as needed. Like I mentioned, the AI piece and other technology innovation that as it becomes available, because we've made a commitment to deliver outstanding patient experience. A lot of groups they say that, certainly, and it's important for them to, but for us, we really make the extra effort, because we go through great lengths of bringing patients in. We have a strong marketing department, and the goal is to explain the unique differentiator that is Gonzaba Medical Group to patients, to the patient base out there, and ultimately to add more patients to the group. But if we have a hole in the bucket, for instance, if we bring patients in and patients are leaving us because they have a poor experience, then it's all for naught, right? So patient experience is key. And Gonzaba Medical Group is an interesting model that we have. It's we the patient base that we see here primarily is Medicare Advantage. That's the type of patient that's a true prospect for Gonzaba Medical Group. So we're talking about 65 years and up, those that are eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan. And they really drive about 90% of the revenue for the organization. And the model that Gonzaba Medical Group is, it's very complex, but it's wonderful to talk about because it's not just primary care. It's primary care and specialists and ancillary services working together for the benefit of patient. So other groups similar to ours, they might be primary care and go after Medicare Advantage patients also, specialize in Medicare Advantage patients, but they don't have the ecosystem that we have. Our goal is to manage the continuum of healthcare for that patient. So that means minimizing unnecessary referrals outside of the group. That means trying to minimize unnecessary hospital admissions. So we have all these services in our ecosystem, and you have the primary care physician really as the captain of the ship, so to speak. So rather than refer the patient across town, we get to refer the patient across the hallway, or rather than send the patient, across town to get an X-ray, we have that down the hallway. We get to contain all of it, and that ultimately is a better patient experience. It's a more timely healthcare, and it's more impactful healthcare. Because truly, what makes us successful is delivering superior patient outcomes, not just the volume-driven model, which is predominant in the U.S., which is the more patients you see, the more dollars you make. Here, we do well financially based on quality healthcare delivered, and that means treating the patient in a comprehensive fashion. Not I'm going to see you for 5 minutes and I'm going to refer you across town. I'm going to send that problem elsewhere. No, we're going to engage you, and we're going to work with you, and we're going to get you engaged in your healthcare, and that's truly where we see the difference. And that's how we're able to do as well as we have been, because we have everything under one roof working together.
I can imagine that model too, from the patient's perspective, must feel really nice, right? Like it's like, oh, these people care about me. Sure.
Well, the beauty of it is it's great patient experience, but it's also great for the business. If part of our goal as a group is to contain unnecessary cost, a little bit about the model of care that we are a part of is that it's called full risk capitation, which means the provider group, we pay for all healthcare expenses for that patient. We get a certain amount per member per month, or per patient per month. But if we can easily exceed that amount, and if we do, we pay it. So it makes sense for us to contain it as much as possible, right? So if we do that, and it really goes against the typical model in the U.S., which is the volume-driven model. A lot of groups, they have to see, a lot of physicians have to see 30, 40 patients a day, and it's volume-driven, and I see you, I'm going to write you a script, I'm going to send you out. I see you, I'm going to refer you out. I'm going to see the next patient, kind of like a conveyor belt. With us, our physicians might see 13, 14 patients a day. And that's because we're trying to deliver a different type of healthcare, which is really preventing them down the line from getting sick and needing to go to the hospital. Because ultimately, if they do, that's our responsibility. So we contain it as much as we can. And we also have case managers, social workers. We have all these additional support structures in place to help the primary care physician do well in this model.
That's really cool. I love how comprehensive that all is, and it must be popular with your patients. You were saying that you have 10 facilities now, or 10
Yes,
clinics now.
Absolutely.
How do you manage growth?
So that's a good question. Growth is, we're lucky that we have a unique brand that really connects with the community. And we are the preferred choice of medical group for the seniors of San Antonio. And we're lucky to have that. A lot of other groups, they grow differently. What they do is they acquire practices. So they basically purchase small independent groups across town, and they have a built-in patient population that they basically consume, and that's how they grow. For us, we grow by being the preferred medical group, so organic growth, and it's a completely different model than what the others are doing. But I tell you, we have a great culture, and we have great connectivity and brand equity with the people of San Antonio, and so the key thing is, in order to grow, we need physicians. So that goes into the overall industry trend of there's a staff shortage, and that includes healthcare in healthcare, right? So for physicians, the only hiccup that I see is we need to we need more physicians to accommodate the growing patient base. So it's a good problem to have. It's better than having it's better than the reverse, right? Patients leaving and physicians sitting around with not enough patients to see. So we have a good problem, but we nonetheless need to shift a major focus to physician recruitment and hiring the right physician that fits the culture, that can connect with our patient base. So that's a goal for us right now. But like I said, it's a good problem to have. We are also opening up facilities across the city. So our typical model is we have centers, what we call centers, where we have all these services under one roof, and then we have satellite clinics in different areas. So the satellite clinics, we might not have as much market penetration, but as it grows, and hopefully it does grow, and they have been growing, then we take a look in that area to create to establish our own facility with our full suite of services. So if we do well, it's almost like a trial with excuse me. So we'll start in a new area, like a new zip code for a satellite clinic, and it's a leased clinic, it's a leased facility, and then we do well, and then over time we'll look for property in the area to build our own facility from the ground up. So that's typically how the model for growth that we've instilled here. And right now we're in the process of growing or adding a 30,000 square foot facility. It should be open next year in a great area of town, a lot of growth opportunity. So we already have market penetration there, but it's a bigger opportunity for more penetration.
It sounds like there's a lot that goes into that, though, right? You're saying, like, at first you kind of scope out an area, then you kind of start small and then grow from there.
Yeah.
It's almost, it's that iterative approach again.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's, when you think of strategy, it's, there's different schools of thought, but some might say, if you have a strategic session with your team, with your executive team, and you have, oftentimes there's a 3 or 5 year strategy. And, from my standpoint, it's difficult. It's really difficult to think 5 years in the future and have a defined strategy. You can certainly have, some big ticket items, like you want to grow to X amount of locations, but things change so often in this industry, specifically in healthcare, that you really have to do a temperature check every year. More than that, quite frankly, every quarter, to make sure that we're still focused in the areas we need to sustain our current growth and and that it's scalable for future growth.
I can imagine, yeah. So, sorry, lost my thread there.
Okay.
So when you're going into there, like, how do you, when you're thinking about the patient experience and kind of bringing that value-based, what goes into that when you're scoping out a new location? Is it different than typical approach with medical clinics and things like that?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm getting some additional noise. I don't know. Do you need to do that question again? Because there was.
Yeah, let me ask again.
Okay. Sorry.
So, going back to that patient experience, value-based healthcare, how does that play in, I guess, when you're building out a facility, scoping out a new location, any of that during construction?
Yeah. Absolutely. The facility really, what we've seen, and we didn't initially expect. So um, one of our clinics with less volume, I should say, we had a big leased space for that clinic, and we did a brand new facility from the ground up in 2018 to replace that leased location. And you know what we've seen, tremendous amount of growth. It's almost like the new facility became all of a sudden, it drew more patients in. It's a lot to say that it's not just the brand or the type of physicians that you have, but also something like a facility. Patients want to feel good about where they're going, and it's a representation of the type of healthcare that we want to deliver. If you have a nice facility, has good parking, is aesthetically pleasing, that's a win. And that's really applies to any industry. It's critically important. That's the initial patient experience. And then of course, once they get here, having the right physicians and right staff, critically important to continue that.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there too. It's like patient experience begins from, can I park my car,
Yeah,
and or can I get there easily, and then
100%.
and then through the whole thing. And it's really interesting to hear you think about
Yeah,
your approach that way.
yeah, 100%. The patient experience, it starts from our contact center. If a patient is
Yeah,
calling in to reschedule their appointment, it's there has to be some type of standard that is set really across all industries for customer service. And for us, it really, the standard is set in the contact center because we can monitor it with technology. We have an auditing tool that can, essentially listens to phone calls, and we have a team on the patient experience side that actually audits the call center, calls that are coming into the call center, and grades them. So we identify areas for improvement. We also identify our contact center reps that are doing a stellar job, and we give them recognition, that are going above and beyond. But that checks and balances really is key. So now what we're going to do is expand that, because in our pod, which is a physician and two MAs, it's on the clinical side. That's what we call a pod. We have to transfer calls to the pod during certain circumstances, like an acute care, if there's an acute care need. So what we found is that sometimes the calls aren't even being answered at all. I mean, and I'm not saying that the pod is, neglecting their job or anything like that. It gets pretty busy there. Um, or if the calls are being answered, they're being answered, like you would answer a call at home, right? And that's not really the type of standard that we want to have. So now we're expanding that standard to the pod, and we're developing a team to really listen to those calls and make sure that there's consistency across. And that's a big initiative to implement. We're all responsible for patient experience: contact center, the physician, the medical assistants, front desk, the security guard. We're
yeah,
all connected. That's why it's critical that we're all on the same page. And for that, one thing that I developed not that long ago was a patient experience committee. It's a cross collaborative group of stakeholders, ranging from our chief medical officer is there. I'm included. Clinic administrators for different locations. My patient experience team leader is there. And what we do is we go over all issues, complaints from patient surveys, opportunities for improvement, and we vet through everything, every opportunity, and we implement some solutions. So it's good to have.
that is really cool. I was just about to ask you what you're looking forward to do, like in the next year or so. I feel like you just kind of summarized that for us.
Okay.
I don't
Yeah,
know. Did
that's
you?
so. I mean, I can. So one thing I can say also, like when it comes to the patient experience, our physicians are dealing with patient care. they don't have a lot of time to look at numbers, metrics,
Hmm.
right? They're doing what they should be doing, which is delivering outstanding patient care. But there's an opportunity to get this data in their hands so that they know how they're doing, right? With their patient experience scores, NPS, which is a net promoter score. It's a metric across industries that indicates it's a customer service score, essentially, a metric. So what their NPS rating is, what kind of reviews they're receiving on Google reviews, how many patients they've grown recently, how many patients they've lost. There's not a lot of insight
Hmm.
into their direct patient panel, and I think there's an opportunity to bring a little bit of more clarity there, because if you're going to change anything, if there is an opportunity to improve, you have to be aware first,
Yeah.
right? So now that we have this data and we have these committees and we're making a difference, now let's connect that information with the physician and get their involvement, right? And
Yeah.
that's truly something that we can do probably better than most because we are an independent group. There's not a lot of red tape here.
Right.
We have a lot of physicians that have a vested interest to really see us succeed because they succeed if we do.
Absolutely. It's a really interesting point too, taking all of that data that you have from a business operations perspective and
Yeah.
bringing it back to the people who, are really, you know, most hands-on with the patients, the
Yeah.
healthcare providers
Oh,
themselves. It's really
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah.
And
100%.
yeah, I guess like, you of course a doctor wouldn't be thinking about kind of the meta business impact, right? Like they're
Right.
worried about their patient's health. So
Right.
it's cool that you can kind of
Yeah.
digest that and give it to them in a informative
So
way.
So one of my departments, their main goal is to bring new patients into Gonzaba Medical Group through marketing strategies. Um, and I used to have a physician in particular. He's not with us any longer. He left town, and he would get frustrated with the marketing department because he would state that we weren't bringing new patients in for his panel. We weren't growing his patient base. And the reality was we were, but he was losing as many patients as he was growing. So if we had that data, we could have shared with him. It's like, look, we actually added 20 new patients to your panel over the past 2 months, but you've lost 22. You lost five through, you know, through death. You lost three to moving out of the area, and you lost the rest through customer service issues, specifically related to bedside manner. And just giving that information to a physician, that can make all the difference. It's like, wow, well, maybe I there's an opportunity for me to improve. And that's the first step, bringing awareness, because without that, the narrative, as far as I'm concerned, in his mind was we didn't like him and we weren't growing his patient base. That was kind
Right.
of what was going on, and that was the narrative he was trying to paint. It was furthest thing from the truth. The reality was we were bringing you patients, but you were also losing them. You know,
Right.
so it's an opportunity to really connect. The business aspect with physicians and really bring it together. I think it's a lot of opportunity there for sure. And physicians are we wouldn't be where we are without physicians. It's all about physicians, without question. We wouldn't be in business without it. We deliver patient care, but there's also something to be said where we let physicians do what they do best, which is see patients. That's why they went to med school, right? That's what they wanted, to help people. They want to
Yeah.
be hands on. The majority of them, right? They want to be hands on. They want to deliver that patient care. That's what they were trained to do. Um, but you also have others that are specific to the business aspect, right? Business acumen. They have certain planning capabilities, experience in holding groups accountable. They have a structure that might not apply to healthcare specifically in the patient care sense, but it's what's needed on the business sense. So if we're in the if we're a healthcare organization and we're a for-profit entity, there needs to be that business. It needs to be a strong business structure as well.
Absolutely. And
And
it's
yeah,
one informs the other, and it's great that you have that kind of circular communication that you're building into the way it goes.
it's actually it's interesting because if you consider the dying independent medical group, it's almost extinct. It's going extinct, and the main reason is because you have a group of physicians. It could be 3, 4 physicians. It could be 2 physicians, but it used to be where a physician can set up a practice with another physician and they can do well for themselves. But now there's so many expectations in healthcare. There's quality measures that have to be hit. You have to have an infrastructure. You have to have an electronic health record. You can't do, it's not paper charting anymore. You have to have an
Right.
electronic health record and you have to maintain it. And there's just so much more to do now for the independent physician group. So you have to ask yourself, okay, can I invest in my practice, X amount of dollars and bring in an IT team? Do I bring in a marketing team to help me grow patients? Can I need someone from revenue cycle? Do I need a front desk team? That's a big investment and
Yeah.
it can be overwhelming for most physicians. And that's what's needed now, really. And it needs to be done well. And a lot of physicians are just independent groups, I should say, are waving the white flag and they're saying, uh, you know, they're open to being acquired, which means if they get acquired, they go back to deliver that patient care that they wanted to do all along, right? And not worry about the business aspect that you can't avoid, you know.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. And you bring up such a good point there. I wonder, like, has the complexity of the modern medical system made it difficult for those independent groups because it is so much more
100%.
complex?
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's healthcare now is so complex, and what we do at Gonzaba Medical Group, it's a value driven model. So it's based on value based care, quality scores, and there's and even traditional volume driven models, fee for service models, um, and even traditional volume driven models, fee for service models, there's starting to become value based incentives within those. So it's difficult. It's difficult to continue on the path of healthcare, delivering healthcare when it's changing and it's becoming more complex, and there's expectations and there's standards that you have to hit, and it's difficult to do it alone.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody a while back, and I can't remember what industry they were in, but they said every company is a tech company, and I think with some of these kind of, I don't want to say dated, but like these existing kind of industries, it's a big shift to go
Yeah.
from kind of one model to another. And but it sounds like y'all are doing a pretty good job at it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're in a great position to, take advantage of these of tech as it becomes available and if it's relevant. A big one right now that we have, it's actually sounds simple, but it's more complex than it sounds. Um, it's really voice dictation for our physicians. So the EHR, electronic health record, is really I should say the heartbeat of the clinical operations, if you will. That's where data is compiled over time for patient diagnosis codes, um, you know, uh, everything regarding the patient's healthcare, medications they're on, everything, right? So it's difficult to interact with. Every EHR has its problems, and no one is happy with an EHR. Certainly, that's why it's wide open for disruptors. But one thing that's been offered is voice dictation. So it's through a company called Verance, and it's called Dragon. It's Dragon dictation,
Oh, yeah.
and the dictation is pretty sharp. I mean, it's also AI is also leveraged for that. They're able to use their phone. They can talk right into their phone and automatically populate a patient chart. And that's something that we rolled out recently. So, and it's, we're getting a lot of good feedback uh, for it. So we're constantly looking at, ways to improve the workflow of using the EHR or other technologies. There's no getting around using an EHR, but we can certainly take advantage of opportunities to make it a bit better of a workflow. And
Yeah.
especially with security on top of that, security, we are there's a big emphasis the past 2 years on security. One of our health plan partners is requires us to be high trust certified. High trust certified is, without getting into the details, it goes well beyond what is required for HIPAA to be a HIPAA security. I screwed that.
HIPAA compliant.
Yeah, let me say that again. Yeah. So one of the big initiatives over the past 2 years is a real emphasis on security related to our infrastructure, our IT infrastructure, and it's high trust certified. So high trust certified, without getting into the weeds about it, it goes well beyond being HIPAA compliant. It goes all the way to not just technology, but even actual facility security. Keypads on all doors, cameras. It's everything. It's very complex. So how do we balance being a high trust certified organization and also taking advantage of new technology to make it easier to for a workflow like seeing a patient and interacting with the EHR. So we're constantly balancing that and trying to integrate where possible. Certainly.
Sounds like a challenge, but it seems like y'all are up for it. From all this, we talked about so many cool things today: AI in the calls, and expanding the practice physically, bringing the data back to doctors. We talked a lot about work today.
Yeah.
But how are you doing? How's your life been?
So it's been busy. It's a good question there. It's been certainly hectic. I certainly have a lot on my plate, but really, one of the reasons, or one of the big reasons that keeps me going in my role and at the pace that I have is really my team, my team, the people I work with, the leaders in my departments. I work side by side with them. I'm not like a office delegate everything kind of guy. I'm roll up my sleeves and I'm right there with them. And it is. You mentioned that it's a family business, and yes, it is that in many respects. But I really consider my family the people I work with. That's we're working arm in arm essentially on initiatives side by side with one another, and there's a lot of trust, a lot of connection, and I wouldn't be able to be here without them. So it's making my job a lot easier. And as far as having fun or unwinding, I try to work out certainly a couple times a week. It helps with stress. And I have a 2.5-year-old boy, and it's really an amazing it's an amazing time right now to be a part of his life and see the developments along the way, and it's really something special to be a part of, and it's changed me for the better. So I'm really enjoying that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
2.5. What a fun age that is.
Yeah.
They're starting to become little people.
Yeah, I just took him for his first haircut. Actually yesterday. No, on Saturday. And it was It was an experience I never forget. I mean, it was, it was terrifying in many ways. I mean, he panicked, and I had
Oh
to.
yeah.
Oh yeah, he panicked, and I was sweating,
Oh
just
yeah.
from the anxiety of it. So,
It's a
but
new experience. Yeah.
we got his haircut, and yeah, so that's my big, you know, what's going on for me personally is that, but it's terrific, yeah. And
Did
I
you
have
give
a
the
couple of
barber?
dogs that I love. I
Oh,
love my dogs, yeah. So I'm
that's
a
great.
dog guy.
Well, it was really great talking to you. I hope all the best for you and your family.
I appreciate that.
And Gonzaba Medical Group. Sounds like you guys are
Great,
doing some really great stuff down there.
thanks, Nick. I
Um,
appreciate it.
of course, yeah. Is there anywhere people can stay in touch with you, keep up with your work?
Sure, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn. That's probably the best source to get a hold of me. LinkedIn would be, I'm Francisco Paco Gonzaba, and feel free to reach out. And I certainly will respond. I'm always on LinkedIn.
Cool. Well, thanks again for your time today. It was really great talking to you.
Absolutely.
And for all of you out there, thanks for joining us on the Age of Agility. You can find us on quickbase.com/podcast or wherever you listen. We'll be back in a couple weeks to share more stories and advice from the folks managing the complex projects that reshape our world. Goodbye.
You've been listening to The Age of Agility, a Quick Base podcast. Stay connected with us by subscribing to the show in your favorite podcast player. Please give us a rating, leave a comment, and share episodes you love. Until next time.